Hey, we're back. Welcome to Two Film Maniacs. I am Vin.
This is Rick.
And today's topic, we're going to start discussing the future of theaters. So, Rick, tell me a little bit about what's going on in the news with the future of theaters.
I guess Warner Brothers has canceled all 17 of the films that they were scheduled to release in 2021.
Yeah, so these are films like Dune, Matrix 4, some big blockbuster films, correct?
Yeah, so let's take a look real quick.
And then I understand that Disney just released a slew of films that are going to come out on their streaming service. All the new Marvel films and Star Wars TV shows.
Pixar.
Stock blew up in like a day. And it was actually, they probably just came out at a perfect time after Warner Brothers throwing that out there, saying, hey, listen, we're not going to go to the theaters anymore. They actually did say, we're going to stream at the same time, throw it out to theaters, but everybody's saying that that's just a little throw off. They're really not going to be going to theaters. The concentration is streaming.
Yeah, so that was a backhanded, stab to make the theaters happy by saying, oh, look, we're still giving it to you too, so you can still make money, which obviously a lot of theaters might just tell them, hey, we're not going to show your movie. So that's the expectation, is for movie theaters to say, we're not going to carry the film, because that had been the standard practice before. All theaters are like, if you release it the same day that it's coming out in theaters, then we're not going to have it in theaters.
Yeah, and then you have all the filmmakers that are behind these films that they're shelving, basically, or just throwing right to the streaming service. They're coming out, and they're pissed off.
Yeah,
you have
Christopher Nolan made...
Nolan and the director of Dune as well.
Yes. Well, everybody, the idea as a filmmaker, the ultimate achievement is the red carpet and to see your baby on the big screen.
Yeah, because it is an experience. If this experience leaves, if the theaters are crushed along with everything else that's been going on with 2020, there's no film experience really. I mean, you're just making a film for the small screen, for these tablets, for these phones, for the 60-inch TV at home. It's not a collective experience that's going to be missed.
Okay, so yesterday you had the DGA, which is the Directors Guild of America. They wrote an open letter, full letter, to Warner Brothers Media, telling them that their 2021 movie slate for HBO Max is unacceptable. So that's the Directors Guild of America fighting back, saying, hey, look, like this, because I think they understand.
They do not want it going to HBO Max like that.
Correct.
They don't have a problem later on going on to HBO Max.
No.
But we do have to look into the connections of where HBO Max is connected, like who's connected to what company, because you got to follow the dollar. They want to make sure that, hey, HBO Max is getting destroyed by Disney and Netflix and Hulu, all these other streaming services. So they come out and basically say, hey, listen, have all your films, Warner Brothers, come over to HBO Max as a streaming service so we can boost up our client list,
right.
basically, our membership.
It's a pretty cool letter that the Directors Guild of America wrote to the heads of Warner Brothers Media. And, like just little snippets throughout it. It's like, Warner Media's reversal on theatrical release patterns not only restricts our members' ability to have their films seen in the manner in which they were intended, it also affects their income. And so now we're talking about massive repercussions for everybody. So you'll still have those 2-3 people at the top.
Yeah.
They're making their shareholders happy. And those people make a lot more money. So now instead of, 20,000 people splitting $2 billion, now you have 10 people splitting 99% of that, and everybody else, you just figure it out and go grab the crumbs.
Yeah, it seems like they're taking the same road with every corporation. I think we were talking about it yesterday, hey, listen, corporation is an entity all on its own, such as a human being, and basically they only have a responsibility to their shareholders. However, they have no responsibility to anything or anyone else. And I think they're sort of doing the same deal that's out there. It's like the Spotify effect where, the artists are not getting paid at all. They're not getting anything. The big ones, the big named people like a U2 or someone, they're being used and being paid to bring everybody into the service. But
Correct.
I have so many friends that are musicians, and they're just getting killed. Spotify it just killed the whole industry.
And what's weird is when you see a lot of these things, because there was such a great system set up, it doesn't die immediately. You start to just see the cracks in the armor. It's like, you're driving your car and it's been 6 months without an oil change. And just because the engine hasn't blown up now, if you don't change the oil, the engine's going to blow up.
Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah. It doesn't. You have to change it.
You
it
have
has
to
be
change,
done. You have to.
But
But I don't know. I think film's following the same route with music, where you see Bob Dylan just selling his entire catalog of songs for like $300 million. Crosby, Stills and Nash, Stevie Nicks, they're all selling their entire catalog for hundreds of millions because they cannot make any money because they can't go on concerts. They can't. That's how they make their films. That's how they make their money.
Yeah.
And I think filmmaking is going to take that same route, where the streaming service is going to be the more important thing, the bottom dollar, the almighty dollar, and all these artists that are trying to make ends meet or supplying these great films.
This has to eventually, because now the streaming services, when you eliminate the theaters, even though you're competing with each other, you still have somewhat of a monopoly. So my incentive now, and it's moving all into the terms of these shows, so it's not even about the 2-hour blockbuster anymore.
No,
because,
that's gone.
Right, it's Stranger Things now. It's The Boys.
Yeah. It's limited series that are controlling, and
yes,
they're sitting people down for long periods of time, and that's
right.
what they need. They need to fulfill their
with those,
hours and hours of programming time.
Yeah, but with those series, there's no way you're paying Brad Pitt,
no,
$20 million to come, because he's gonna, like just where he is in his life. It's like he's not going to do some streaming service for you for $20 million. I mean, I have to shoot 8 movies, like 8 1-hour films. No, and he's not going to be compensated as such. So I think that kills these mega directors and mega stars.
Yeah. Well, Ron Howard just went over. He made Hillbilly Eulogy for Netflix.
Yeah.
And it had Glenn Close. We were talking about that. People are destroying that film. It has a certain. It's missing the. I don't know, the Ron Howard touch as a filmmaker. That's gone. It's sort of like made for TV movies now, but with Glenn Close and Amy Adams and Ron Howard at the helm. And that's what's happening. And I don't know what the budget is. I don't know how much money. I think they're just paid up front. So they have their compensation, but Netflix now owns it all, and there's no payout down the road. I don't know if that's better for filmmakers, because you always hear them getting screwed over by the production companies like Miramax and Warner Brothers not paying the artists properly. Maybe this will even the playing fields for the smaller directors to come into play. I don't know.
I do think people like me and you, when you have a film like The Drowning, and then we can do something like a couple of my upcoming projects, those streaming services, they need, just like everything else, it's almost like the streaming services are popping up like the invention of the internet. When the internet came out, you needed content. People want to consume content. As great as Netflix is right now, there's not a ton of content. Like if you wanted to go home and watch binge on 3 or 4 good things on Netflix this weekend, you have to search for it.
Yeah, and Netflix, they're known for not having older classics. They're known for not having the A-list films. They're new films, okay. I don't think any of the original content that Netflix has put out can hold a candle to anything that when the big boys are part of it and making their films properly with these hundreds of millions of budgets. However, Netflix is covering the Scorsese film, a couple of $100 million for that. Everybody got paid. It wasn't such a great film. I don't think it was that great of a film. However, maybe that's the enticement for all these filmmakers to come over, go where the money is, and they have carte blanche to do whatever they want. Netflix does not give a shit about whether or not
they need the content.
Final cut or something.
Yeah.
Excuse that Freudian slip. But these films aren't as good. However, they have the money. What we were saying, 200 million worldwide memberships. Is that
73 million in the United States?
73 times
200 million,
15. We were talking like what, 1.7 trillion a month?
Or
this
something.
This company's making 1.7 trillion a month.
Well, 1.7 billion a month or something. It was
200. Multiply that 200 times
15. Yeah,
times
whatever it
15.
gets
And I
to.
think it just went up. So that's 1.7 billion
Yeah.
a month.
Right.
Holy shit! So just think, they have that 100 million to say, hey, listen, let's make a Brad Pitt big, enticing week, because they can make one every week if they wanted to,
I think
and
they're doing,
still be fine.
Next year they're spending 17, 18 billion producing films
On new content.
on new content.
So that's 17 billion next year.
That's
that
17 billion.
that they'll put aside
2021.
when they make 1.7 billion a month. It seems like they're making a whole year's worth. They're putting a whole year's worth of
Yeah.
money
Yeah.
into content.
Yeah.
And
then,
it's also buying. I'm assuming they'll be buying
that's just the
things like
subscribers,
if they.
so we don't know what they're making from advertisers and everything
Yeah.
else or whatever. So it has to be far greater than 20, 30
Yeah,
billion
that's just
a
the
year.
membership.
That's just the membership.
And who knows what it costs to keep that monster running and things
Yeah.
like that. However, they have the clout, they have the money, they have the financing, and they're doing this.
Chris Hemsworth series, the Extraction series. I think they spent.
Did that happen? I saw the first one. Did that continue? Did they make
They're
another one?
they're making. They said they're going to make a whole bunch of spinoffs and the whole thing. So they're going to move him into like a Bond type franchise. I didn't think it was that great. I
don't like anything Netflix has put out as a Stranger Things. Yes, but it was nostalgic
Right.
to me. I don't know if it was to you. I think it was, because we grew up on that time period of films and show and TV making.
Yes,
and it was great. It was awesome. It was the first one of its kind. You really don't have that vibe. There was a horror movie called The Summer of '84 that did that. It was shot like a 1984 horror film. It looked like a 1984. Took place in 1984. So that time period is really nostalgic right now, and everybody's trying to hold on to what they used to have, especially in 2020. It's sort of like, since everything blew up and everything's so insane, it's like wherever you were happiest in your life, that's where you want to go back to right now, because nobody can handle where the hell we are. It's just like, it's just such a horrible feeling.
I think the thing with the streaming services that, it seems like, we're kids, like early 90s TV. That's what it seems like to me. There's
Netflix, you mean, the streaming services.
Just the shows in general. Like, I have nothing against the shows, but it's just, it doesn't have that purity of film. And when you go to the theater, it's
like a Lifetime TV show.
Yeah, I love The Boys. I thought The Boys was great.
Yeah.
But I think The Boys is better if it's 2 hours or 4 hours, because you can say everything you need to say in this 2 seasons of The Boys.
Yeah, you're sitting there a lot saying this is dragging on way too much.
Right, and that's what you get. And I think television writers are some of the best in the world right now. I think these guys are excellent, but just the nature of TV is slow.
Yeah, it sucks. It just sucks.
Yeah, so like you said, where Stranger Things, it's cool, it's nostalgic. It's even, I went to watch Cobra Kai, the new series.
YouTube.
Right. They've moved it to Netflix. So season 2 and season 3. Yeah, season 2, season 3 is on Netflix. Yeah. So Netflix bought them out.
Yeah. They're buying everybody up now.
They're bringing
all the content. They can afford it.
They're bringing the 2 Chinese actors that they used in the original Part 2, Part 3. So they have them in season 3. So it's cool because you see these people where we looked up to when we were kids, and you see them, they're older now.
I don't think it's necessary to see what happens to these people later
Me either.
on.
No, it kind of ruins it.
It ruins the mystique. I really felt that Johnny in the original '84 Karate Kid learned his lesson, grew up, understood that that nutcase sensei that he had was not the right way. It's like it sort of leaves you in that 80s
but they put
happy
him back,
vibe.
The sensei's back.
They bring everybody back. And Johnny
back.
now didn't learn his lesson. He's sort of back to being a dick. And then,
well, season 3, Daniel and Johnny team up.
Yeah, but then Daniel also had his son was defiant and everything. It's just like, dude, nobody wants to see that shit. Leave it in the mystique of it all.
Running the mistake, but again, if you are going to do it,
they did it right.
Huh?
I think they did it right if you do it.
Yeah, but I still prefer, give me a 2-hour movie.
Yeah.
Don't string it out for...
Don't show me 17 sequels. Yeah. Don't show me... I don't want to see Chunk from the Goonies grown up now, and he's divorced, and he has this shitty job. You know what I'm saying? It's like, leave those films alone. Don't reboot everything because it has an in-house audience, already a built-in audience. It's too much.
And some movies that would be excellent that were out when we were 7, 8 years old, 5, 6, 7, 8 years old. You look at movies like Weird Science.
Yeah.
Weird Science would be awesome today.
Yeah.
But how do you get that back into public consciousness? Because you don't want to promote a movie that's 30, 35 years old. And then these remakes sometimes are horrible. So do you remake? So what they do is they say, hey, we're going to do a series on weird science.
Yeah.
And then now a movie that, or a story that was intended to be told in 2 hours, now you need to stretch for 9 hours or 10 hours. And then it just becomes, like.
Or it could be the whole, hey, each generation has its own little thing. The TV generation brats of the Spielbergs, George Lucas, and everybody else. They were from TV. That's what they grew up with. Then we grew up off of them, the 2-hour film. So their idea is like TV. How do you film it? And they threw out, this is the formula for this. It works great. And then we grew up on their stuff, and we stuck with their formula. But we recreated some newer things. The Tarantinos, the the Kevin Smiths with Clerks and stuff, the John Singletons. It was unique voices, but with their formula still. Maybe now they're saying, hey, listen, and also the media has been changing. So maybe they're saying, listen, now it's time to change that 2-hour formula of what we think works. You know how MTV sort of changed the formula of how we view with the fast cuts and the type of information being thrown at us so fast, so the kids had to adjust to that. Maybe now these kids, my kids, are going to be introduced to these slow-ass burning 10-hour series, and that's going to be their understanding. Everything's slower. Even though they're rapid thinkers, they're slowing down the television process of understanding the storylines. It's just too slow, I think.
But I think them, and it's been going on for years, it's more of a social media world. Even when you see people out having dinner, they're on their phone.
Okay,
you see two guys at a ball game. Like before, you went to a basketball game 20 years ago, you focused on your buddies in the ball game. Now you're focusing on people, like all day. You tell everybody how you're going to go to the ball game with your friends, but then when you get to the ball game, you're still online searching, looking to see what people do instead of actually enjoying your friends and family and looking at the ball game. So like that's the cultural impact. So, but I think because we are constantly consuming content all day long, you have the need for new content. Like as great as Joe Rogan is, if Joe Rogan took off for 2 weeks, people are going to be on to the next thing. Like it's like he has to keep,
he's got to be relevant.
6,
He's got to be in everybody's face. But that also comes into play. What you're saying is that everybody's on their phones and the content is so fast. TikTok, videos, Facebook, things like that. It's like 1 second, 1 minute, 2 minute. That's all sped up. However, the movie-going experience is now slowed down. So like us, we grew up on MTV, flashes, quick cuts, and we understood pictures a lot faster than our older generations.
Right.
But the TV and the films were still half-hour serials, 2-hour films, and our process of understanding sort of matched what was going on with MTV world. And now, I don't think it's matching. It's not like correlating. It seems like these kids are on this real fast, and then all of a sudden they're supposed to sit down and enjoy Stranger Things. It's sort of like an adrenaline pump, fill them up with some cocaine, and then all of a sudden just throw them down on some Valium
but
right
I think
afterwards.
What you have is because the kids, like, the parks aren't full anymore. The basketball courts aren't full anymore. Kids aren't playing touch football in the neighborhood. It's like these things that kids were doing to eat up 5, 6, 7 hours of their day, now they're online.
Yeah.
So when they do get into Stranger Things,
They're okay with it.
Yeah, and 1 or 2 days, Stranger Thing is gone. What's the next thing? All right, Netflix, what else do you have for me?
Yeah.
Okay, Netflix, what else do you have for me? And I think they just go through so much content,
so many hours of the day need to be filled with so many different eyes, so many genres, so many likes, dislikes.
So you have the gamers, like they might play a game for 3 or 4 hours and then they want to watch a movie. They're going to see the movie, what's relevant.
They're definitely pushed inside. You're right about that.
Yeah.
They're all inside. Nobody's outside anymore. However, that old school way of watching films, getting back to that, is dead and gone. And you have like Christopher Nolan and the director of Dune. I can't pronounce his last name.
Denis
Villeneuve. I can't pronounce his name. I never. Denis. Let's just call him Denis. But again, these are epic films. Matrix 4 with the Wachowski sisters. This is they're making films that need to be on a big screen with a collective consciousness watching it in a room. You know how powerful that is. I mean, we see how powerful that is every single day. If everybody's thinking the same thing and experiencing the same thing, and your experience is going to be different. You can actually change the vibe of the room, and that's gone. I don't think that's going to come back.
Right. No, I think culturally we're at a point to where everything is changing. And I really do think that we were a little bit more connected 10, 15 years ago to where we are now. I think we were. Yeah, I think the American
that cusp was right about
American values. American values 10, 15 years ago for most Americans were the same. They kind of wanted the same thing. Now the values are completely different. Like you do have this split. So before, I don't think there was too huge a difference on a political party. You know, like they still had the core values, but they might disagree on 4 or 5 key points. Now, even within the Democratic Party, you have this. You have that
sway.
Right. You have the center Democrats. You have where Joe Biden is, which he's sort of like the still center left establishment. And then you have the AOCs of the world who are a lot more progressive and so far left. So now you have the divide within their own party.
Yeah.
You know, so like, and that's another huge movement. It's almost like it needs to be a third party to where you have, you know, like right, you know, then center left, and then, you know, far extreme left.
There's like 3 on each side. You should have 3 on each side, which will never go away. That 2-party system is going to be.
The 2-party system.
You know what's funny is that I'm watching like all these older '80s films with my son now, and you know we watched The Gremlins for the first time.
Awesome.
Right, and it was a great flick.
What did Jack think of The Gremlins?
So he liked it. He loved it. He thought it was a good film and stuff. But I'm watching it now as an adult. He sees Gremlins running around and everything else. But there's like this there's this backstory to Gremlins which I never knew was this whole "it's not made in America" thing. That's what an actual gremlin is. It's from the 30s and the 40s. So it's like things that weren't made in the USA,
right,
can get like, you know, this TV doesn't work properly. That's because a gremlin got into it. That's what they said, and I never knew that. I don't know if you remember the character that lived next door. He drove a truck, his tractor, and he's always like buy American, and stuff. And now I'm seeing it so differently because of Reaganomics time period and stuff.
Awesome.
This was 83, I think, or something like that.
I got to tell you something exciting about the Gremlins that you're going to be really happy about.
They're remaking it.
Of course, no, they're making part 3.
Oh, is Joe? Well, it's got to be a Spielberg production though. I think it's Joe Dante. Did he make it? I think it's a Joe Dante film.
Oh man,
if they're all part of it, it's perfect timing though. But if you watch that film, I'm watching it and I'm like, oh, you know, there is this whole thing. Of course, it stole from It's a Wonderful Life, and you know, it's stealing from all these films. And You Shot Your Eye Out, Kid. Like all that stuff was there. You know, that they put into the Gremlins of what a Christmas film should be. But it is like a horror, you know. He was like scared. Then my 4-year-old, she was just like covering her eyes and being like, "These gremlins are evil." Yes. But you know, you saw them get, you know, when they started going bad, they started smoking and shooting each other and playing poker and stuff. And I'm like, oh man, this is really funny how they're showing this and representing. But I had no idea about that whole background. It's not made in America gremlin thing and that was around. So that's totally today because of the climate, the political climate of China influence, make America great again, and the Russian collusion. All this stuff is seeping. It was always there in the background of all films and music from the 80s, 90s, all the time. But we don't see it as prevalent as it is today. Like today, there's social issues. It wasn't, you know, the Russians.
Right, correct.
It wasn't Rambo and Chuck Norris going over to the countries and stuff.
You have this huge diversity push. You know, today when Disney's rolling out their slate, which we'll get to in a little bit. We'll talk about Disney slate, but as they're rolling out their slate, you know, like they bring out, you know, like the fat white guy, they bring out the gay dude, they bring out the lesbian, you know, like so they have
everybody has to be represented.
Everybody has to be represented, you know. So it's like, and for them, that's diversity, as if you know,
one.
And those things, as if you can take any type of human being and say
stereotype them into one type of
just
thing.
Say that is the black experience or the gay experience or the white experience. Like that's the representation for the entire race.
Yeah,
you know. Like what about their thoughts? There's no diversity of thought.
Yeah, my wife gets all over me about this because I do look at life in stereotypes, sort of. But that's because I'm a writer, filmmaker. You know what I'm saying? You sort of have to say what's the collective thought and experience to make this character more. You know, accepted by a mass. You know, it's not just 2 people. I don't want 2 people to represent. You could write a character because everybody's individual and everybody has human characteristics that can, you know, just be one characteristic and one person can relate to. But you don't want to do that as a film. You want a collective experience and people be like, oh yeah, that's totally how that is. Yeah. Back in the 80s and stuff, how a Chinese person was portrayed in a film. Yes, racist, and it was horrible, but it was like that's what entertainment sort of showed us who we were, and then we realized that that's not how people are. Today, I think they're going back to it even more so by this one-man representation of, okay, LGBTQ, here's what trans should be represented, here's what gay should be represented.
I think what happens is, like, in all of these great films from before, the cast are these, even if there's 10 white guys, the cast still is still diverse. You know, like, you look at...
Wait, you're talking now or back in the 80s?
Back in the 80s, I think what I mean by diversity is, like, you have the same character because they're following the hero's journey. So this is, in my eyes, what happens is you take a comedy and then you got the one serious guy, you have the one funny guy, or you take Star Wars. You know, you have the young pup Luke Skywalker coming up. You got the mentor in Alec Guinness. You have the feisty girl in Princess Leia. You know, you have all of these, you know, Han Solo is, you know, like the charismatic, funny guy. Mm-hmm. You have all those roles. So, like, when you look at Star Wars, even though they're all white, they're all very, very diverse. You know, like, as far as, you know, like, none of the characters like each other.
Class was definitely there.
Right. What happens in the new films is now you want to change the color of those characters. Yeah. So what happens is they make the black guy the funny guy. Yeah. And he's the funny guy in every movie. So when we look at it, we're just like, maybe is that racist because they keep putting a black guy in that same role? Yeah. So the
comic relief.
But those characters are there. They were white guys before, but now we're like, we need to be diversified. Yeah. And we're just plugging and playing. And I think because filmmakers copy each other, we're just like, oh, the black guy, you know, Eddie Murphy was funny in that role. So let me put John Boyega in that role.
See, but he never played like a caricature, I don't think, like in Eddie Murphy or Wesley Snipes. You know, they never played like caricatures of race. Right. They actually transcended. You were just like like it feels today, like you're saying, they just plug in, we need this black guy to fill this role.
Yeah, I don't think they're doing it as a character. I just think that they're looking at these films that were successful before. Because, like, if the film's made today, if Star Wars is made today, with, you know, they completely tear up the cast. Yeah. You know, so now when you start to look at the characters, it's going to be different. It's like, okay, well, Princess Leia probably needs to be a gay black female. Yeah. You know, Luke Skywalker, that's who he is, you know, and now we need maybe a Spanish guy for Harrison Ford or whatever. And you just start to throw these characters around.
Yeah, which they did. You know, they put, you know, the Harrison Ford figure is now sort of taken over by, what's his name?
Oscar
Isaac. You know, and so that he's doing that. And, you know, they're just replacing who Luke Skywalker is now replaced with Rey. You know, and then again, going back to what's his name? I don't even see where his role fits because he's in limbo with everybody. The guy who who's the other character? The ex-stormtrooper. He has no purpose. He has no purpose. It's like they, you know, and it was like, okay, great, you know, that trailer showed him take this off, and there's a black man underneath the
and
the
that's
stormtrooper, and it's like
different directors and different people, and I think, you know, like they didn't have an idea.
Character? What's his idea? Is he just representing this one because he has to tell Rey something that he loves her, that he does this? What's this one? Like, he has no real purpose in the story. Everybody else around him has this replacement person.
I don't think anybody has a purpose because, like...
Well, they definitely filled the roles of the old. All they did was remake it.
But we saw that. Before we knew from the very beginning, it was like, you can go to episode 4 or 5 and you say, this is about, you know, especially when Luke gets in his head, I have to redeem my father and bring down the Empire. So you can go back films 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and you say, this is about... redemption, family redemption
for that character,
for the whole series, father-son relationships. And
that was there from the beginning.
That was there from the beginning. But you can look at any episode of Star Wars and plug it in and say, okay, we do know the Empire has to be defeated because, you know, the Empire represents Nazi Germany, represents, you know, communism. You know, like it's this big brother.
Kong early on.
Yeah, this big brother. It's just this big brother. Powerful military entity that controls everything, and that needs to be brought down. Yeah. And we can follow that throughout human history. you look at these new ones, and we don't know what it's about. It's like
No.
Rey has to do what? Why? Like, why does she care? You know, like, why not go back to
Is she
her?
an orphan? Did she have parents? Where's the family situation there?
Yeah.
Is she going to fight for that? Just take that away. Just because Luke was always having an issue because he didn't have his parents. He had his, his aunt and uncle that raised him, but then he comes across some family history with Ben telling him who's who, but meanwhile he was the mentor of his father, and that there was that backstory that was so interesting that everybody goes back to family, but now, like Disney in general, they destroy the family. They're like, listen, we don't want any of our characters to have a two-person family, like a father and a mother. You can't have that. And I don't think they're quite ready to go to let's have two dads or let's have two moms.
They're not doing that already.
They probably will. I have not seen everything,
so.
but right now I don't know of any off the top of my head up to
cartoons.
today. Oh, the cartoons, I don't know. I'm just talking about movies, like Frozen, everything that my kids watch, I'm watching and I'm like, oh, both parents died in a ship. Okay, this father's not around. I don't know why. Like Toy Story. Where's the dad in Toy Story? There's no dad. I don't know where he is. He's gone in all those 4 Toy Stories. In every single film, the parent dies or the parent's missing, going all the way back to Bambi. So it's like, I don't quite understand Disney's plot to kill the family and kill the idea of family.
That's been around. So let's see their diversity in cartoons, which is a whole nother.
So you're talking about the animated films.
I think they're.
There's none dad, mom. And there's none.
Are you sure?
There's the only one that I know, and I've watched them all because I have kids that age right now, is the one where, I can't remember the name of it, but her feelings are animated, and she has a mom and dad involved in her life, and she's dealing with moving to a new city, and there's a representation of mad and angry and sad. What film is that? I can't think of what the movie is. But anyway, that's the only one. But they make, the whole film is about this little girl who's just dealing with so overwhelming emotions that she can actually go into a mental illness. And that's the only time they represent a mom and dad that's involved with that girl's life. So every other one, they're a
There's a
Mac.
show, Andy Mack was Disney's first character to utter the words, "I'm gay," in the 2019 television show.
Yeah, that's a TV show, though. Again, though, that's not like mainstream film. If you're talking about Frozen...
Onward is the one.
Onward is the one that has both mom and dad. However, the daughter is like a basket case. That's the representation because all the little characters are her emotions. And it's a good movie. I'm not blasting that, but I'm just blasting Disney's idea of, listen, there is no mom, dad, normal family. That's gone. And we're going to represent these kids growing without one of them, which is weird.
Okay, so they have a movie. It's called Out. It came out in 2020. Pixar did it.
That was good too.
It's a short.
But it's a mother and the father dies, and it's the 2 brothers, I believe, that go out looking for.
Well, I think he has parents because it says he doesn't want his parents to find out.
Let me see.
But they might learn
cover.
the truth.
No, I don't know what this is. I've never seen this. This is new. This is 2020.
Yeah, we're in 2020.
And this. No, I'm not. This is new. This is a short.
Yes, it's short.
Yeah, no. Again, I'm talking about mainstream. You're bringing up shorts. I know that they're doing that in small levels, but they're not the mainstream movies. Yeah, the mainstream movies. That is the first one right there, because that's about coming out.
Okay.
But it's a short, and who the hell watches the shorts on Disney? It's not like you go to it.
Onward's a big one, right?
Onward's a big one. Onward is the other one with the 2 brothers.
Okay.
I think. Let me see the Onward. We're dropping things. Let me see. Yeah, Onward is the 2 brothers. But again, they're sort of like aliens, too. They're not like real people. They're like stepped to aliens, and there's like a lot of like talking horses and things like that. But that's about a father who passed away, and it's a single mom, and it's the older brother and the brother, and they go off on this adventure, and they sort of have the spirit of their dad with them. So again, they're just the family unit. There's no normal family units, I guess. I guess they're probably saying, hey, listen, there is no normal family units anymore. I don't know. I mean, I was raised by a single mother, so I can relate with all these characters. But just because I was raised by a single mom doesn't mean that I think that that's a correct way to raise a kid or to be, I want a full family. So I have my wife, I have my kids, and that's it.
And that is offensive to some people. When you say that, hey, like you want a nuclear family or you support a nuclear family, again, people have issues. People have issues with that. So you have to be careful on how you throw out those words and be like, hey, a healthy household. Yeah. And I think anybody wants a healthy household for the child, regardless of what their backgrounds are or what they want to do, and like that type of thing or whatever. So I don't think anybody has any issues with that. Some of these things though, when my problem,
you feel it. You feel it when it's being pushed.
I don't want John Boyega against Star Wars, and this is me saying this as a black man. Why throw him in there? The only reason he's there is because he's black. Like you said before, he has no purpose. It's like he's the janitor.
I mean, honestly, when you first saw that, remember that commercial? We were raised on Star Wars, Yeah. So before that first trailer that came out for the new one, which was the part, the next step from Revenge of the Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
And they do the whole trailer, and you're like, oh my God, they're coming out with another one, and it's a stormtrooper, and he takes off his helmet, and it's this black guy.
Yeah.
Immediately, you're like, it's like a political statement in a way, saying that, okay, Liz, there's one, we had no idea what the hell the movie was going to be about or anything.
Right.
But it was just a trailer, and Lucas was getting shit for years and years and years, saying, hey, listen, why are there no black people in space?
Yes.
And people are like, well, there was Lando Calrissian, and then Kevin Smith makes fun of it. He's like, fuck Lando Calrissian.
I was naive, so I was excited. I was like, oh, now you really, when you're talking about diversity, it's like you have a black Jedi who was a stormtrooper. I'm going to watch this character go from the opposite. I'm going to watch him go from being evil to being good instead of the typical being good.
And is that the story of him? Is that his background, that he is a Jedi?
No. That's what it was supposed to be. But they tried to clean it up.
Oh, my God. They killed that. That would have been awesome.
They tried to clean it up at the end and say he had the Force. So when we were watching Rise of Skywalker.
You mean when he was running around bumping into things and being like, Ray, I got to tell you something for fucking 8 hours.
They switched it from him telling her he was going to say, I love you, to him saying, I have the Force as well. I can also use the Force.
See, that's a forced force, and it's like that's when it falls down, man. We talk about this all the time with the diversity thing, and it's like it has to transcend. It's like Blade. Wesley Snipes transcended race. There was no race in that movie. It was done so well, and you were just like, it's about vampires. Nobody was like, hey, listen, man, there's this black dude running around, and white people aren't being represented only by this old dude or the bad guys.
You look at an awesome movie like Predator. Predator has everything in the cast. You have black guys, white guys. You have the Indian guy. And it's just like cool as shit. You don't pay attention to what color any of those characters are.
And who? And I don't know. I don't know if I'm. I'm smart enough to know that I have no fucking clue about anything that I read, see, or smell. And even that, like, were we blinded to just being young and, oh, what a great movie, but yet that was still going on then, like we just didn't pick up on it. Like Gremlins, we were too young to pick up on the political shit that was going on. Jax isn't, picking up anything like that, but I'm picking up as an adult, and I see it now in movies. Was Spielberg doing that and Lucas doing that back then?
Because like you can watch Alien now and not realize that Sigourney Weaver's a female, and she's a female badass. You're just watching a great movie. Yeah. When you sit and watch Salt, the last thing you're thinking of is Angelina Jolie is this female badass super assassin. She still seems like a woman with skills, grew up so her journey is there. You see when she fails, you see when she gathers herself, you see her emotions.
So when you remove the journey, the hero's journey, then maybe that's what makes it discredited.
I think these new ones are, they just want the female to be badass and don't suffer from the very beginning. They give her no flaws. She doesn't, you look at Rey. Rey's a cardboard cutout. She never says anything bad. She's always happy. She's the best at everything. You just over and over again. Oh, pilot, she's going to teach Han. She's going to teach Han how to fly the Millennium Falcon. Yeah. She's going to, Luke's been around Chewbacca for 40 years, but she has to translate for Luke what Chewie is saying. She's going to be better than him with the lightsaber. She uses the Force better than anybody.
Yeah,
she's just
the nicest, it's sort of like, person. Hey, listen, you've had your fun male fantasy sci-fi.
Yeah.
Now, and there is a woman in charge of all that.
Of course.
There's Kathleen Kennedy that's running the ship. And she's just like, you know what? I'm going to change all this, maybe because of how she's been treated
in the past,
by Spielberg, Lucas, and all these. You don't want to go up against a John Milius, and be like, hey, listen, just shut up, and I want to make my movie.
Yeah.
And his movies are men, a man's man movie.
Man's movie, right?
But he made it for them, and it was just like, leave him the hell alone. Why does he have to put some female sidekick into it? And maybe Kathleen Kennedy got kicked around so much so that she's like, it's my turn.
It's my turn, yeah. I think
and do it right.
And what we touched on earlier. Now, when I look at like great films that I think are great films, and me and you have this conversation before about why aren't there more female directors or whatever, I just think it's just guys are more visual. But when you take a movie like Star Wars, I think Star Wars works because Marshall Lucas gets involved. Like I think it brings that feminine touch to balance the movie, because you take a movie like Sicario. Sicario is great, but it's a guy film. Like, you're not going to get many.
You thought it was going to be what's her name's film. That's what's so great about Emily Blunt's film.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you're like, oh no, she's being pawned and used.
Yeah, but I'm just
like
saying,
a doll.
But just that genre, women aren't going to want to sit down.
Yeah.
And now I think if you take the film as it is and you gave it to a female to rewrite it, you get a lot more balance in the film, and it'll probably be more universally.
Yeah, they're working together. Look at Quiet Place. Quiet Place with Blunt and her husband Kaczynski.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to spoiler alert here. If you haven't seen it by now, then go. You should have. But she's alone at the end of the movie. The father does stand up and save the
family,
the kids from being killed. That's his role. He's going to lay down in front of traffic, and he's going to take a bullet, and the woman brings it on to part two. You never had that. For years, it was always the guy standing and making it. Unless it's a horror film, it was always a female. But dramas, sci-fi, action films, there was always men that were there at the end.
I think a lot of those films, even E.T. gets a touch of, I can't think of the chick that came in and helped E.T. But I'm just saying, like, some of these big budget science fiction films, I think, and when you start looking at top 100 lists, and you're like, why isn't a No Country for Old Men, as great as the movie is, why isn't it seeing more? Really, their audience is like 80-85% male. Women not going to really want to sit down and watch No Country for Old Men because it's missing the feminine touch.
But that's fine, because make a man's film for a man, make a woman's man for a woman. I think when it's like, hey, listen, we got to get it, like Joel and Ethan Coen making No Country for Old Men. They're like, hey, listen, this is going to be our film. This is our Western. We're going to make a Western our way, the way that we want to, and it's for men. Most men watch Westerns. John Wayne was not a big lovable guy for women. They didn't give a shit. Clint Eastwood. Nobody gave a shit about Clint Eastwood. He wasn't able to cross over, play Misty for me and stuff, playing a leading romantic man.
I do think that's where some of these franchises, when they push it too far, then your intended audience doesn't recognize it. And I think they do need to recognize that the women who love those films love them for the way they are. Like, they don't want the superpowered Rey who has no flaws. Like, they are going for the same thing that everybody's going for.
But is it a responsible thing to do? Because, like, in life, you do have a hero's journey. There's a reason why the hero's journey is in the culture for so many hundreds of thousands of years. You know what I'm saying? It's like, it's a real thing that exists. Now you're sort of saying, like, hey, little girl, you could be Rey. You don't have to work for it. You don't have to go through the sweat and tears. You don't have to do all this shit that, we've been trained as little boys, busting our ass and saying, I'm going to work hard and become the best football player, basketball player, filmmaker. You work, toil, and sweat for that. And now they're saying, oh, no. All you have to do is just be born without a penis, and then you're good to go.
And then you're good to go. Yes,
just,
you're going to be the best, most powerful at everything.
You'll be jumping over fucking buildings and stuff. And I don't want my daughter to think that at all. I want her to be able to think that she can do whatever she wants. But hey, there's you have to work for what you want. It's not just going to be handed to you. So I don't know if they're messing up by doing that and saying, hey, listen, let's put these females in these extraordinary
you look at these
situations.
These last 3 Disney films, it's only been a year since they're out of the theater. Nobody's saying, hey,
talking about it.
Yeah, nobody's talking about it. Nobody's saying, hey, you got to go watch these 3.
Nobody's buying the toys and stuff like that.
Exactly.
I don't see a Rey doll being able to put my kids through college. Like a Star Wars unopened Yoda or some shit. There's just no way.
There's zero interest a year later. The franchise is over and people are like, thank goodness. I mean, me personally, and I must have seen Empire Strikes Back 200 times. It left such a bad taste in my mouth. It's like, I haven't watched The Mandalorian yet, which I should have. I'll get around to it.
Yeah, I haven't either.
I haven't seen Solo. I
But
watch.
maybe that's it. Maybe these films brought the blockbuster, summer blockbuster theaters up the ass everywhere. Because remember, there was a time where there were not that many movie theaters around the country, and then
Yes.
Jaws coming about, Star Wars
Yes.
coming about,
Yes.
Godfather, all these films that made the summer blockbusters what they were. And now there was theaters on every block. Entertainment became so big. Blockbusters were every other block. Blockbusters are now gone. Theaters are just the next evolution of, listen, get rid of them or scale them down to maybe one
Well, and that's
per 200 miles. I'm just bringing it back into a circle so we can wrap it up and then move on.
that's another, I think, skill of the culture, because like you look at different cultures around the world. You talk about American capitalism in the West, and just in general the things that we value, because like it's very easy with everything they're pushing for life to fall into nihilism. It's like, what does it all mean? Especially if you don't have a family, or if you don't have this, or you don't have that. It's just like, why should I care? Why go to the theater? Why work hard? Why, so the hopes and dreams for the human experience is hope. Like there is hope that somebody will find a cure for death and will travel the galaxy or something. But there is just this human spirit of hope. As a filmmaker, I hope to have my movie on the big screen. You got to think, if you're growing up in a third world country, if you're growing up in parts of Africa or Central and South America, you have no hope. There is no movie theaters. There is no directors. There is no, so here to where anybody can walk into a Walmart and pick up a camera and film. Like you can go cut grass for the weekend and say, hey, I'm going to save myself $500 and get me a little crew together, and we're going to shoot a little 20-minute short. That's done here, and I'll be able to release it and talk to people and put it online, and like this.
You may not necessarily, make the money, get a career, and all this other stuff. However, your art and your voice can be heard. It's like going back to Coppola, when he was interviewed and talking about video cameras when they first came about, and he's like, hey, I hope some fat girl in the Midwest can pick up one of these cameras and now make a beautiful work of art like Mozart or something. And that's still there. It's even, but even when he's saying this in the 90s, I think he said in the 90s, 91, 92, it's still, you still don't see these people doing what they can do with these like little powerful phones and stuff like that, because there's still that element of professionalism that's there.
But you are getting more and more. But I think the death of cinema is part of death of American culture. Like the funny thing is, like I know you don't watch a lot of sports. I don't even really watch a lot of basketball anymore. But they were like, this year in this country, college basketball is a big thing. They have the March Madness.
Yeah.
So
I'm aware of the biggies like that.
Right. So they were saying maybe they should cancel the college basketball season because of COVID, because they canceled it last year. Now they make all their money during the March Madness NCAA tournament. That's the conundrum of their sport season. It's the pinnacle of their season. Right. So they have the conundrum of like, if we don't have March Madness this year, the sport falls. They were like, there's no more college basketball in this country. Yeah. So you might start getting them on the local levels. You might have 8 or 10 team leagues to where it's close where they get on the boats.
Not to the size.
Not to the size. They're like, college basketball
and the effect
is done. The way they played college basketball before. So we're talking about going back into like 1920s.
So you're comparing that with what's going to go on.
Well, I just think that the two things that make America America, when you talk about capitalism, it is everybody works hard all week and then go enjoy your movie or your sporting event on the weekend. Mm-hmm. That's what we do. Like that is the whole American experience. When you're 8 or 9 years old, and you're somewhat creative, if you're middle class and you're growing up, it's like either I want to be a football player or an actress or a movie star. That's the whole embodiment of the American, and that's what makes the culture, because like, and those people speak
that's
to
what
us.
makes America America.
That's what makes America. Yeah, you want to be Michael Jordan. You want to be Luke Skywalker. You want to be Bon Jovi.
Yeah.
Like
George Lucas. You want all these people you grew up.
Yes.
That affected you in such a profound way. Is gone and is leaving, gone. And it's no longer there. So like, where's the hope go? Where do we go?
Where do we go? And I think, and that's where like you kill that, and then we're no better than any of these third world countries that we look down on, because in that country, it's either I get to America
or we're told
I can't
are complete, communists and wrong and how they go about life,
But just look at those individuals, look at poverty around the world. They're just like, because of COVID, like nobody's paying attention to this, but the WHO and several other people, they're like, 150, 200 million people are going to starve to death.
Yeah.
They're like 150 million people are going to be in extreme poverty because of this.
Yeah.
And a little off topic, Bill and Melinda Gates, she gave an interview yesterday, and she was like, well, her and her husband never thought, she said they didn't take 1 second to consider the economic impact that will have on people.
Yeah.
She literally said that. She's like, oh, we've been given advice, but we didn't think about the financial repercussions, because for her, like,
she doesn't have it.
Yeah, she's like, what do you mean humans run out of money? Like, what do you
When was
mean?
the last time her FPL bill was late? Or,
Yeah.
hey, do I put $40 into my tank, or do I put $20 and go enjoy a candy bar as well?
Yeah. So she
never had those choices.
No, she never had. So for her, she's like, what do you mean people run out of money after 8 months? Like, what do you mean talking about?
3 months? 3 months? You're supposed to have 3 months in the bank? She's like, I have 4 light years of money in the bank. I could pay for you and your family as well.
Yeah, she's like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Economic impact. What is that? Oh, you mean money? Yeah. I don't know what you're talking about. It's like, I don't know how many works. I just know I have a lot of it. Whatever.
How many zeros? There are a lot of zeros.
Yeah. I have a card. When I go someplace, I swipe this card. It works. They just give me stuff. So I thought everybody had this card.
So then bringing it back to where we started, where a theater is going to go, do you feel they're out, they're gone, they're going to be gone completely, or are we going to recoup just theater-wise? Where's it going? Where do you feel it's going to go?
I still think ultimately, until you get rid of the 30 plus, people still like people, so that's why people still, even though they're trying to push you indoors, people still like people. You still want to go to concerts, you still want to go to the movies, you still want to do these things, but it's like, how do you do them at scale? You're going to need somebody with a new mindset, because the 25-year-old executive that's working for Warner Brothers right now, the 30-year-old guy who's coming up, his whole world is online and streaming. So when you get the tech guys in, remember, those guys don't go out. They live their entire world online. So for them, it's
they're
Twitter,
a slave to
YouTube,
the board
right,
of directors.
Yeah, so for them, they're not thinking about the creative aspect at all, because it's sort of like Melinda Gates, to where films just create themselves. We don't worry about the filmmaking side of it, because filmmakers will figure that out. I don't even need to look at the film. I just need to know where it's most profitable. Right now, streaming services, we need to have 200 million subscribers like Netflix. And it's like, what do we do with that? And it's like, if I have to poach your film that you worked 3 years on, I don't care, because it's just another data point for me. And when I run this thing through my AI algorithms, it tells me the best move is to take 17 films that we've spent $4 billion on. We put it on our streaming services for a year, and then in 2022 we'll be making $10 billion a year.
Yeah, and they're thinking 5 years out, and they're thinking 10 years out. Like, for now, crush it, get rid of the theaters. Who cares about them for 4 or 5 years? We'll revamp it, 10 years from now.
But not even the theaters. I don't care about. They don't really understand how it affects the rest of society, because it doesn't matter. They just only care about this one little thing.
I could see that.
The bottom line, and it's like, yes, this might be a detriment for, like the COVID thing. It's Japan has had more suicides last month than they've had COVID deaths all year. So the side effect of, I want to keep you safe and lock you indoors, now people are going to kill themselves. They don't think about that. They're just like, they don't, they're just like, hey, I'm just
at hand.
Right. So I'm just going to keep you alive. But, you're not keeping me alive, because you're driving me crazy and you're going to make me commit suicide. And it's just.
Yeah. Well, in regards to that, with theater and stuff, it reminds me a little bit of what I read about in the 60s, where, television came around, completely killed theaters. Theaters were running around saying, what the fuck do we do? And all these studios closing, and then the Coppola is coming into play, and Luke is coming into play, and them taking over these old studios, just saying, hey, listen, let's try to revamp it. And they were able to do it. They were able, you had these Dennis Hopper films, Easy Rider, and all these films, the Warren Beatty film, Bonnie and Clyde. They were able to do what they thought was right. And I think right now is our time to sort of do the same exact thing, where there's a big problem. There's a new beast in town. It's not television. It's streaming services killing the theaters, and these new ideas need to be pushed out there again to bring people back into the theaters and stuff. So
I think as long as the country doesn't destroy itself, you always have to give somebody something that they can't get at home. Blockbuster Video thing was, oh, people want to come into our Blockbuster store.
Yeah.
Not if I can lay on my couch and press a button. You know, like I'm not going to the store. So,
I was against that, and then I started doing it a little bit here
Yeah.
and there, pressing it, being like, "Wow, look how convenient
Look
I
how
can get the new
convenient, yeah.
Kevin Costner film."
Yeah.
Which doesn't need. Well, yes, it does need to be seen for for sake of the filmmaker in a big cinema experience. However, certain movies you can do that and
But a
enjoy
lot of
them
these,
at home.
right? A lot of these films now, we're talking about Dune or King Kong versus Godzilla.
That you need
yes,
the
you
theater
need to be.
experience.
But there's a ton of movies that so for those movies, it's like they have no shot because there's no
None.
reason for me to show them.
So they won't even be made, I think, now over the next few years.
I think filmmakers need to figure out technology. So what could we do? All right, so we know we like going to concerts. We know we like going to sporting events. Those things can't be replicated at home. Like
No.
I can look on
The
TV,
experience
but
has to be outside of the house.
right. So like if you're going to see Guns N' Roses, I can play it in my car, or I can go see them on stage, which is going to be completely, totally, 100% fantastic. Now, for theaters, it's like it's from stage plays. The problem with stage plays are cool, but I can't have live special effects. The actors and actresses need breaks. If they screw up,
But I'm not allowed to sit next to somebody, so I'm not even allowed outside the house. Like, how do they get past a collective experience when the whole thing going on now is everybody's separated?
Well, I think after they tag us and vaccinate us, and
We'll be able to go back to theaters.
I
don't know.
Once they chip us up, I think we'll be
they'll
able to
be closed like the mid '60s and just not open again until something else comes around.
You know what I think people would watch? I think if we went and we had a stage, you see sci-fi films and you see like the holograms and stuff like that or whatever, and there's this thing called like a holoportation device. I think the next step for filmmakers has to be somebody needs to create the technology to where if I'm sitting down in a movie theater, the people look live in front of me. They're not contained to a screen or a box, but I have these physical holograms that are moving around, and that's something that I can't get at home.
Okay, so you're hopeful that eventually, even the technology changes, that people can be sitting in a theater experience again. You think that will come back? Which I think will not come back.
I think it comes back when the
Ever
technology
be sitting next to people again.
I think it comes back when the technology changes. I think so. Just imagine you take two toys, or like if we're in a movie theater, we have the characters are our size, and they're playing out what the director filmed and shot in front of us on the screen. So now I'll go watch that because I am in the heart of the battle.
But what about movies? Just what about simple screen movies?
No, I think that's done. I think it's going to be some type of
streaming service,
virtual reality filmmaking.
All right, so you're going to next sci-fi level.
Yeah, because like that's an experience that again you can't really replicate.
A communal experience will be that no longer this big fucking screen that's in front of us.
Yeah, big screen,
two-dimensional.
Two-dimensional.
Yeah, the whole AR experience and stuff, and we'll get into that on another episode of where the technology is right now with AR, VR, because that's dominant. All right, so you're hopeful that we'll get back into the theaters with a new technology. However, you do feel that two-dimensional, even three-dimensional, big screens, collective communal experience at the theaters are dead.
Yeah,
that's
that
dying off.
That appeared
Me too.
to me.
I agree. I agree with that. So, all right. Well, that's where we feel the future of theater experience is gone due to streaming services and this past 2020 year locking us in. And so we'll wrap it up there, and hopefully.
Well, before we go
ahead.
You do have to talk about the Disney slate. What did you think of it?
Well, with the whole Marvel and Star Wars.
Yeah, the new Marvel and Star Wars. They're rolling out Cassian Andor, which was the guy from.
I think they're
Rogue
dead
One.
too. I think the Marvels are dead because nobody knows these other comics and these other New Mutants and stuff. Never heard of them. Star Wars, heard of those, and I'm I have not read all those comics growing up, but Spider-Man, Superman, all those have been made now to perfection.
Yeah,
finished. All these new comics, which we'll talk to next episode about the comic world and where that's going and where that is right now, similar to the film world. But I think the Star Wars is dead. I think people will watch it. Those that, are real diehard fans just can't get out of it. We're in our 47, 48-year-olds will die soon, and then that will be dead completely because nobody likes the new stuff. And as for Marvel, I don't think there's enough people that know the comics and the characters as much to be like, oh my God, I have to go see Aquaman, Wonder Woman, Star Wars, Marvel, X-Men, Avengers. Those were all from the 70s that everybody read and were familiar with over the past 40, 50 years. Right now, all these new ones, the new slated things that are coming out, I don't think anybody really knows about them as much as they did that whole 20 years. And honestly, 20 years of the same shit. Like, I mean, I remember them talking about this Marvel, next 15 years of the Marvel. And I was like, how the fuck are they going to do this?
Yeah,
this is going to be crazy. But they did it with Iron Man. You know what I'm saying? Iron Man was the start of it. Of course, Blade came out and stuff. Yeah. They hinted towards things. Didn't work. But for them to foresee 15 years ahead, exactly how they planned it out, and it was magnificent. It was fucking awesome. All the way through the Avengers Endgame.
But now a lot of those guys are gone, and they're bringing in this new slate.
New slate. So the new slate, I feel, is one, we got it. We got the taste. There's nothing new that they can do. We're all going to go back to a portal in the fucking skies. Something's going to come through it.
I think
we're done with that.
Right, but I think they're thinking, you have the Eternals coming out, and I think that is maybe March of this year. So the Eternals is a movie. It has, like, it's going to be Marvel's first. You have, like, a gay relationship. Then you have a guy, he's married, but he has a boyfriend as well. So he's bisexual. You have a couple of trans people. Yeah. You know, so, like, they're bringing in this huge cast, and it seems to be about the characters.
PC correctness is across the board.
Yeah, it seems to be about the characters' sexuality more so than. So maybe they're just going with the normal family unit. These guys happen to fight crime, but they really have these social issues.
I don't think that's going to sell at all. I think it's going to flop. I think they're going to get like a few in. Just like if Iron Man didn't work properly, they were like, the hell with it. We can't go maybe 2 or 3. That's it into it. Then that's it. Maybe they'll do like 1 or 2 and realize how dead this genre, and then that whole idea of trying to build up a whole 15 years more of this.
Because the media does push that, so I do think the media will be behind them. But
100%.
That doesn't mean the fans are going to be behind them, though.
Yeah, because they're conglomerates that own that have money, that have to pay the board of directors. They're the ones that produce the film and then distribute the film and then talk about it in the Washington Post. And then it's all like this big.
If the Eternals flop,
yeah.
So let's say,
they will.
But now it's hidden though, because like now, you know, they threw the Eternals out in the box office and nobody went to go see it. They were like, that Marvel film made $8 million. Now they can hide that. Now they can just be like, that was on a streaming service, so we all have no idea.
Yeah.
It's just sort of like, hey, this is your Marvel slate.
Yeah.
This is what you're getting, because you know the thing, Endgame made so much money. They could have given us 3 or 4 horrible films that they wanted to push whatever agenda. We're still watching Endgame. We're still watching Infinity War.
Well, I think the media behind pushing these films, yes, will be strong, will be huge, will be influential on a lot of people. But overall, I don't think it'll be successful because they can't. They're going to try to resurrect something that's already had its moment and passed. I don't think they can duplicate another 15 years just based off of that. That Marvel crux of superheroes, like that everybody's connected world. It was done, it was perfect, but it can't be done again.
And we do have to ask the uncomfortable question of Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire. Not Tobey Maguire. Who's the new kid from Spider-Man?
Oh yeah, I forgot his name.
Tom Holland.
Mm-hmm.
Tom Holland, and they're pushing a gay or bisexual Spider-Man.
Yeah.
If they put that out there and it flops, can Spider-Man be revived? Can you go backwards?
Will they ever? Yeah.
Can
make Superman gay, and then now can we just go back to?
Yeah, be like, okay,
if
it didn't work,
picked up or received.
And exactly. And with it, Eternals, like, does the Eternals crashing and burning, especially in this whole political nature, just where people at? If Eternals crash and burns, does it destroy the Marvel Universe, or does it have enough leeway to where they can give us 2, 3 of those films and we try and? Because the one thing is, if the movie's good, nobody's going to care. If the movie is great, nobody's going to care that it was a gay guy or a black guy or a fat guy or whatever the case may be. Like, if it's good,
it's going to... I think, like you're saying, with all that change and with what's going on in the comic world, which we'll talk about next episode, is that sort of gives you the answer of what's going on in the comic world will reflect what goes on in the film world. And since the comic world... is dead. I think this idea of putting out into the film, because that built-in audience that was there since the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, boom, it worked perfectly and was huge. But everything died in the 10s and the teens.
You're
and
right.
they're
You just
trying to
reminded
make-
me. They just
they're
tried
just trying.
this in college.
They're just trying to make this film version of the past 20 years of comics that nobody's fucking reading or paying attention to.
And this is
Wolverine was able to do that.
You're so right into where they just tried this in comics. They destroyed a lot of titles. But so when you look at new comics,
But don't go too far into it because we want to put that episode. We want to pay attention to that whole episode.
Okay.
So yeah, so we'll wrap it up there and say, where theater's experience is going to crash and burn. It's going to close up. And now, stick with us. Stay tuned for the next episode where we sort of talk about where comics is right now and where comics is going and this influence of political correctness and what's the word that they use? We'll just give them a little tidbit. What's that word that they're using right now because of comics? Something's happening and I forgot what the hell.
Comicsgate?
Comicsgate. So we'll discuss that and go a little bit into it. So thanks for tuning in. This is Two Film Maniacs. I'm Vin.
I'm Rick.
And we'll talk to you soon.